center of Beijing when a man walked to the middle of the Avenue of Eternal Peace.
Well, all right. Welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast, Kevin and Chuck. Well, today we're going to talk about prepping when you're just getting into it, right? For beginners or just getting started, whatever. There's a lot of things going on in the world anymore. Inflation is obviously, I think, really on people's minds. People are seeing it and realizing that the world might not be as static as we always thought, where things never change. Um, there's obviously kind of wars going on, and we seem to be pissing off China and pissing off Russia and everybody else all the time, and things just aren't great. Even North Korea is a little kind of sketchy these days again. We don't have Trump over there having tea with him or anything.
No love letters.
No love letters. Things aren't the same. So people more and more are thinking they might want to get into prepping and stuff. But I got to say, as a general rule, it can be overwhelming, right? It's like, ooh, I don't need to have an underground bunker, or do I need to have a closet, a garage full of food to the top? Do I need to buy an arsenal of guns? It doesn't have to be that. Prepping isn't that. Although I will say, once you start going down the road, it's kind of one of those hobbies that can kind of get away from you, shall I say? People's budgets tend to
Yeah. I think that's a big problem especially for people that are just starting prepping.
Yeah.
They get this idea that they have to do all this, and get caught up, in case an emergency happens next week, and end up spending more money than they have available to do, and ends up turning into credit card debt, which is you'd be better off not having extra food and not having credit card debt. If you had to make the decision between the two, don't buy your preps with credit cards.
That always sounds like a good policy, just not using credit cards in general. So
yeah,
we're not urging anybody to go out and spend money that they don't have. That's definitely not the way.
Yeah, and one of the things that I want to talk about while we're doing this podcast is the best way to do it inexpensively and how to pace yourself properly.
I like it. So it's basically prepping for beginners on a budget.
There you go.
Or keeping a sustainable budget. Well, the first thing you could do is, we've been doing this show a while, and we offer great information. We have a lot of knowledge when it comes to prepping. And I got to say, me and Kevin have made our share of mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
Things not to do. We can tell you that. We can also tell you a few things that are pretty smart, because we've been around the game for a little bit. So the first thing you want to do is like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, to the podcast, Survival and Basic Badass Podcast.com. Check that out everywhere. You might want to do that. That would help things out. Because then you have a steady resource, somebody to kind of keep nudging you along, kind of, fill your mind with ideas. You come up with a topic. We probably covered it with, I think we're like 465 episodes, something like that. I think we're approaching the big 500, Kevin.
Wait till we get into season 2.
Oh, don't even get me started. So anyway, so moving right along. So where do you start, right? First thing that comes to mind with me is security, right? And I know you're thinking, oh, here we go. Here's where he tells us I have to go out and buy a gun, and I don't want a gun and all that. That's not exactly where I'm going. When I think security, I think about, do you have a way to really lock your house? Do you keep your doors locked? A lot of your, hey, I live in the country, we're in and out, and a big family, dogs, and happy, and all right, but are you aware of what's going on around you? Can you see, out into the neighborhood? Can you see, all the different things? That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about.
Right.
Locking your doors, maybe having that security light by your barn or shed in the back, or, at your back door to your house. Do you have a light that, comes on when somebody approaches? That kind of thing is a great place to start.
Yeah.
How are the locks on your doors? Do you
Yeah.
have a decent lock on your door? The big standard for me when I was a kid was, well, is it a little quick set or is it a Schlage? But that was one level of protection. Obviously, that level goes up and up. I have a buddy at work who used to own a locksmith business, and his big thing, he's like, Schlage, they're junk. They're not even near the level. He's like, anybody can open those in 2 minutes too. And I'm like, but it's all a level of protection.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of different stuff like that you might want to think about. When somebody knocks at your door, do you have a way to look out and see who it is before you open it? Or are you stuck opening the door and letting the ATF in before you really want to?
Right.
I don't know why it would be the ATF. That's just when I think bad people at the door. That's what
who you think about. Yeah. Well, I mean, really, the truth is, especially with law enforcement, the best thing you can do is not open your door.
Yes.
And, I know FBI agents are always trained to come inside and talk, not because necessarily they want to talk to you in a comfortable place.
They want free coffee,
but they want to look. They want to look around. Like, what's the stuff? What kind of pictures do you have up in the wall? Is it family members, or you got framed pictures of rocket launchers and stuff,
or a framed picture of Ted Kaczynski, right?
Right. Exactly. So they want to. People. Law enforcement wants to come in and look around and see what you got going on in the house. That doesn't mean that if somebody wishes you harm, that it would be you want to open the door for them either.
Exactly. Maybe just don't ever open your door when you hear a knock.
I don't. I don't.
Now, in today's society, how often have we not all gotten to the point where if we don't recognize a number or we're not expecting a phone call, we don't answer it?
Yeah.
We don't answer it. Maybe that's the way you should be treating your front door.
Mm-hmm. Did you expect somebody to come by today? Because I didn't.
Don't worry about it.
I don't know who the fuck that is.
At the door, that just sounds like nothing we're interested in.
Right. And if you don't have a peephole or a window that you can look and see who it is, you might miss out on the sweepstakes,
Hey, could you imagine, Kevin, when Publishers Clearinghouse or whatever's knocking at the door and you're like,
and they got the big cardboard check.
Right.
And you weren't even around.
The ATF. I mean, I'm not going to answer that.
Oh, shit.
I don't know. I actually got a helpful letter from the ATF the other day, but
oh yeah.
Well, I had sent him a letter, so my kid calls me in a panic at work, and it's like, "Hey, you got an important message from the ATF," and I'm like, "Don't worry about it. I know what that is." Now, I'd actually added a bunch of uppers to a SBR, short barrel rifle thing that you could do. And they were like, "Yeah, we approved all these." And I'm like, "That's my buddy." Only 6 months later after I asked for it.
Exactly. Because you got to get permission. You're a grown man, but you got to get permission from other grown men about what you can do in your life.
Bad enough I have to hide it from my wife. Now I have to either get their permission or talk to the ATF. Come on. Yeah. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Now, somebody in the comments mentioned, when somebody comes to their door, their German Shepherd barking sometimes chases them away. That's not a bad plan. You know what I mean? Like, having a big scary dog is not a bad idea. I feel like if somebody tried to break in my house, my dogs would definitely go to fuck them up. Unless somebody broke into my house like with a vacuum cleaner or something, then the dogs would just be hiding behind me. But
the vacuum would just chase them down. They'd be like, no, we're not doing that. We love you, but we don't love you that much. Right? That's how it probably plays out. All right. So moving along. So basic security, just think about, can you kind of tighten your perimeter? Can you
Hmm.
be aware? Is it maybe the $100 camera system for your house? And maybe that's, outside your budget and where you want to start. That's okay. But I will say, for like 99 bucks, you can get something that'll connect to your Wi-Fi that you can look on your phone. The way technology is anymore, it's not a big deal. Now, I would say I probably wouldn't invite Ring into my life with that doorbell thing that they're like
Yeah, because you're not the only one that can look at it.
yeah, that's not the way to go. And I am absolutely sure that one of those $100 camera sets, probably not as secure, but just the same, it's kind of not as mainstream. I know
Hmm.
that the FBI is going to see a Ring doorbell and they're going to call Amazon and say, hey, we're going to need that footage, or even the local police. Whereas they see your camera from China 123 or whatever, they're like, I wouldn't even know where to begin to get that information. Now, China's going to be watching you,
Hmm.
but the police and the ATF probably not. So I'm just
Right.
saying, you do you. It does sound like I have an irrational fear of the ATF
Yeah, the
or the
truth
stuff
is,
going on.
when you're getting your cameras and and stuff together, you should be more worried about people that are wishing you harm than law enforcement. It's just unfortunately, it doesn't seem like that's the most dangerous person to show up, or that's the most likely person to show up at your door. It's more likely to be law enforcement that's
I feel like it's 50-50, right?
yeah,
Between a bad guy or law enforcement
yeah,
and
yeah.
both being bad guys.
I
Maybe
was
it's is
yeah,
in
it
my
was
mind.
I was at my house this a few months ago actually. But dogs started going crazy on the front porch, and I walked out, and there was a police officer coming up to my house, and they asked me if I had any cameras, and I said no, and they said, "Well, somebody's house was broken down the street, and we just wanted to see if anyone got it on camera." And I was like, "Yeah, sorry, buddy." And then I went in and checked my cameras to see if I could see anything, but
Kevin, you're a
yeah.
horrible person.
I'm a bad neighbor. Maybe I'm a bad neighbor, but
You're a bad neighbor. All right. So food and water. That's I think the first thing that comes to mind when
right,
people are prepping. And getting into it, we always like to say on this show, a good place to start is having 2 weeks.
yeah,
The big thing is to buy stuff that you're using day to day, right? Things that are kind of consumable for your family. Maybe an extra box of extra pound of meat that you keep in the freezer that you kind of rotate through, right?
hmm,
Um, obviously at my house, like keeping 14 pounds of meat usually works for my freezer, right? But who knows? Um, there are things, but the idea is you want things that you're actually going to eat that are,
right,
your family is going to enjoy. And that's really what's important and what you need to think about. Because if you end up with a lot of stuff in your house that you're never going to use, that's not going to be helpful because it's
hmm,
all going to go bad and nobody's going to be happy. It's just going to be a waste of your money. Now,
hmm,
there are a lot of things. One of the things that I used to do when I was getting into prepping early on was I bought they have the like Sam's Club or Costco or something has like the like 6 or 8 cans of chicken, like a pound of canned chicken.
hmm,
That's something that you might not use every day, but you could work into a meal. Like if you did pasta with a sauce, you could probably slip that in and nobody, be too offended or horrified. And I know the wife kind of did that. Or like make soup or something when those are about to expire and kind of work them through that kind
hmm,
of thing. One of the big cheap things you can fill a lot of bellies is Sam's Club had like this big bag of pancake mix,
hmm.
and it was like $10, and it's like you're talking about like 20,000 calories or something for
Right.
$10 worth of
Right, and
pancakes.
that's gonna sit for a long time before it
Right.
starts going
And
bad.
and if you don't open that bag, now those I don't eat pancake mix like that. I just it's not in my world. But to have $10 and I can throw it out every 2 years and replace it or give it to
Right.
a neighbor or, hey, this is expired. You'd probably like it.
Yeah.
Your neighbor would probably love that. Um, but the bottom line is, you can wait till it gets a little older and then kind of rotate it out, or maybe your family would use it. That's, you decide what's right for you.
Yeah,
I
I
just
know.
usually don't eat pancakes. I don't know.
Yeah, one of the things that I do is I usually buy a 20-pound bag of rice and then use that rice.
Yeah.
That's the rice that I cook anytime I cook rice, and just rotate that through. If you have 2 bags like that in a container, you buy a new one, put it in the other container, and start using the other. It's going to last a long time. Another thing that's inexpensive, that works, that lasts a long time, is dried beans. You can have those in the cupboard, and a lot of this stuff will last even longer if you reseal it yourself. Rebag it and put it in mylar bags. Even heavy duty Ziploc bags are gonna hold on to stuff or keep it from spoiling a lot longer.
Yeah. Realistically, I mean, if you bought even I'd say like a 12-pound or bigger bag of rice, and you bought a big thing of pancake mix and some syrup, that'd probably be enough calories. Maybe that and a bottle of hot sauce. You could probably feed your family for 2 weeks and keep people happy, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, happy, I would use that term loosely.
Mm-hmm.
But if you work that into the regular food that you have, you could probably, beef up the rest. And then if you had some tuna or some canned chicken or something that you could add to it, throw a little protein here and there, that wouldn't hurt either. But bottom line, it's not an impossible task. One of the things people always talk about is, when something's on sale, buy 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have that extra redundant on the shelf. Now,
Right.
any of you who've worked in, food service or at a gas station or anything, you understand that concept of rotating your stock, right? So you want to make sure that you put the freshest up front, and that you have it right there or sorry, not the freshest up front, the
Right in
freshest
the back.
in the back. Right. So that way you're always fresh, right? So, that's only 2 days old. Meat that's 2 days old is okay. And you're eating the 1 day old meat, right? You get that kind of idea where you go to the freezer and then it's
Mm-hmm.
a lot less of a big deal. Another trick that I learned from my buddy at Mayhem Country Living there, Darren, he always talked about, you could put your rice or probably even the pancake mix, any of that stuff, if you freeze it for 2 or 3 days and then put it on the shelf, that kills a lot of the bad things in there.
Yeah, pasta too is the same way. And that's another great thing that you can buy and rebag, and it's going to last a long time on the shelf. You don't have to have it in the fridge. You don't have to, any of that stuff. You can just stack it up, wherever you stack your preps. So, yeah, pasta's a big one. Rice and beans. One of the other things though that I'll also freeze dried food, but that's a lot more expensive when you start looking at that stuff. One of the other things is multivitamins. I think that's that's a big one. You're not going to be getting all your nutrients if you're one of the things that I hear a lot of dumb people say is, well, you can go 30 days without food without starving to death. Maybe you can go about 24 hours before you start losing mental capacity, you start losing balance, you start doing dumb shit. You accidentally cut yourself with a knife because you can't fucking concentrate properly.
Yeah.
So you can't really go 30. You can maybe survive laying in a
Your
bed
body
for
will still
30
be
days.
there, yeah.
Right. But
you're not out chopping firewood and standing
exactly.
watch in the backyard and no.
And if nobody's coming to save you, you're gonna be screwed.
Right. I just listened to a novel. I do a lot of audiobooks, turns out podcasts, audiobooks, it's my thing. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So listening to an audiobook and about World War II, and this guy ended up at a Japanese prisoner or war camp. And so he's there and they all get scurvy and can't even walk. And you're just going through it. That's the way it's going to be, because they're getting a bowl of rice a day or something, but the nutrition's just not there. And, to be honest, multivitamins aren't that big a deal. And just keeping it stocked so you're always kind of one ahead. I understand those things do kind of have a shelf life. But
it's a long shelf life too.
Yeah, it's, The hard pills usually hold their stuff. Anything that's hard, like a solid pill, as
Hmm.
opposed to like the gel filled things or like
Right.
that, usually have a decent shelf life. Um, that's something to be aware of. The other thing I'd mentioned is food and water. So storing water and having that on hand is hugely inexpensive and a big deal to really help out your prep. Now, obviously, if you live in the city and whatever, but having a case of bottled water tucked under a bed, something like that, that's only going to help. And if it
Right.
could be 3 cases of bottled water, even better.
Hmm.
If you're out in the country and you have room, putting a bunch of gallons of water, reusable containers are completely fine. Refilling your water jugs. Obviously, we want them clean. Bacteria and stuff can grow.
Hmm.
But if you keep it in a dark place and, bottle of water wouldn't be bad. And to be honest, if you were paranoid, you could put a drop of bleach in each one if you were refilling it. And
Hmm.
by the time you go to have it, that bleach will be long dissolved and nothing bad will be in there.
Yeah. Another thing that I think is a good idea is having some sort of a water filter in your house. A lot of people have swimming pools. They have streams nearby. If you live in a desert, you have a different set of problems with water. But a lot of people have access to unclean unclean water, which
Yes.
is easily cleanable. It's not a difficult project to.
I use that
The
term
trick
loosely,
the
easily.
trick is to filter it and then disinfect it. So
Right.
run it through some sort of filter, even if it's a t-shirt, and then add a little bit of bleach or something like that. And hardly any, like Chuck had said, a drop of bleach in a gallon of water is overkill. It's great. It's not going to hurt you, but it'll make it completely safe. Shake it up. Just shake that bottle up and
Now,
give it about a half hour, and you're good to go.
yeah, I like a half hour, minimum 10 minutes for it to kind of do its thing. But I really like a half hour if you can do it. So if you go fill your water bottles at a stream, even if you can, if you were walking home, right? You have a car trip, you only have 2 water bottles and you have to make it. And for whatever reason, you're going to die and you just cannot get clean water and there's no way you can not drink, right? So you need to drink out of that horrible stream on the side of the road. I
Hmm.
can't imagine that scenario, but if that plays out,
Right.
one, you would want to do something they call a gypsy well, which means dig a hole right next to the stream and let the water filter through the ground
Hmm.
into the hole that you just dug. You're
Yeah.
talking about like 10 minutes. It's not that big a deal. Then you fill your water bottles with that. That's your minimum right there.
Hmm.
But if you add little chlorine packets, they sell individual water bottle, like little paper crystal chlorine
Hmm.
packets. They sell little jars that have like a little pill of like chlorine that you can drop into
Yep.
water bottles, things like that. You can keep like in your glove box and not even notice it, just like an aspirin bottle, and
Hmm.
be able to, bleach or treat your water. Something like that, $5-6, and then you're covered.
Yeah.
Right? That's awesome.
Yeah. See, people
That
use I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it. People use iodine pills. That works. It
yep.
turns the water yellow, and it's a little off-putting when you drink it, but it's fine.
Yes. Kevin, you've drank yellow water before. All right.
Yellow snow, yellow water. It's all good.
Another thing that is actually important, especially, I had mentioned inflation and things getting away from us. Another thing that you might want to consider is financial security.
Yeah.
I kind of go back to that Dave Ramsey. I think if you followed no financial advice, he would be better than that.
Hmm.
But I don't know that he's my go-to. Like if I was really trying to be wealthy or something.
Right.
If you're trying to not be screwed up, he gives great advice.
Hmm.
And if your life's upside down with credit cards and other things and things are messed up, Dave Ramsey's an excellent choice as somebody to listen to. Um, I would say he's probably got better advice than I do. Who knew? But I think if you were out to make a lot of money, he may not be my go-to. I'm just making
Hmm.
that little disclaimer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But
He's real big on
he's afraid of debt. And debt doesn't
knocking out
have
your
to be
debt.
bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Live poor to pay off your credit card, your house, your mortgage, your car payment, live poor so that you don't owe money to people.
And
You
that's
know,
a good way to be.
owing people money means that they have a certain amount of ownership over you. You
Yeah,
know,
you lose freedom when you owe people money. That's why people kind of get so disgusted with the whole tax system, right? And
Mhm.
why we get so offended by hey, why do I have property taxes? That means I pay off my house and I still have to make a payment every month or I lose.
Right?
That's a
Yeah,
big deal, right?
yeah. Because the
That
fact of the matter is, you don't own anything in the United States. Because don't pay your taxes and see how long it is until they come and take it from you.
I mean, man, even more and more, it's you have your car, you have to pay a monthly tax. No, it's weird in the state I'm in. If I don't register it, I don't have to pay that tax on it, like, and still legally, which is weird on my vehicles
Hmm.
or whatever. But at least I think that's true. I don't even know, but whatever. Some people just talk. It's the internet. You say whatever you want.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, so Dave Ramsey, back to that, talks about building up like $500 or I think it's $1,000 nest egg, right?
Hmm.
Where he says, you know what? At first, just make the minimum payments on stuff until you set aside $1,000 in the bank, in the whatever, and you get there. But he also encourages you go out and get an extra job, go out and do things to start bringing in extra money immediately
Hmm.
and kind of set yourself up with $1,000 cushion, right?
Hmm.
And then that takes some of that pressure off. Oh my God, my car broke down. Oh my God, I have a flat tire. Oh, and it's going to cripple me. I've heard, the battery dies in your car, and somebody I knew just had a Honda that they had to go get a new battery for, and it ended up being like $240 or something for a
Yeah,
battery.
crazy.
I'm like,
Yeah.
really? For the minimum battery, it was 240.
Hmm.
But something like that was like crippling, right? Where you're like, oh my God, that really wipes out my budget. Now, again, it's probably because they're choosing to not use credit cards and that kind of thing, but it really wipes out your budget. And you need to put yourself where you're comfortable and you have a little cushion that you're not going to be thrown. So
Right.
set up a little nest egg, but you should be making sacrifices that you can build up that nest egg quickly.
Hmm.
And so having $1,000 now, maybe as you have more stuff and your mortgage payment, if your mortgage payment's $5,000, well, one, you're probably making a mistake in life. But two, if your mortgage payment is $5,000, then you probably need a bigger nest egg than $1,000, right?
Right.
That you need to set aside more and build up, but it's all relative to your lifestyle. But again, you want to kind of minimize your lifestyle and do what you can do to get there. Just saying. Next thing is like physical fitness, health overall is kind of a thing. Now, obviously, we could all drink a few less beers. I understand, but I also my mental health is
Hmm.
important.
Right.
And that's where the whiskey and the beers come in, is the mental health. I'm
Yeah,
just saying,
that's fair. Hmm.
right? You do you.
Another great prep is whiskey.
Is whiskey. That's
Lasts
always
forever.
having enough. I mean, what happens when that bottle runs out? You don't want to be forced to have to like risk drinking and driving or do something like that. You need
Right.
to,
You
hey,
need to have a
have it on
backup.
hand. I have a backup. That's called
Hmm.
planning ahead right there. I don't know. That's horrible. Kevin, that's just bad advice right there.
I have an extra bottle of whiskey in my freezer right now.
One amateur, whatever. No, I don't know. I'm just messing around. But bottom line, having alcohol actually is a good prep where as far as something you can barter and honestly, sometimes it's one of the only pain relievers you can get. But basically being aware of one, you can up your security with like martial arts training, that kind of thing. I've been to a lot of tactical training, both with weapons and without, like hand-to-hand combat stuff like that. Working it into your life turns out if you have a little bit of knowledge of self-defense, you're ahead of a lot of people out there.
Hmm.
Um, it's
That's
going to
true.
make a big difference. Also, we saw that Rittenhouse kid maybe just carry a skateboard. I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, you do you, right? There's no reason I have a skateboard in the back of my car. I just, I don't really have a skateboard. I carry a
Yeah.
concealed
Another
carry.
issue with health is a lot of people have chronic diseases. Um, diabetes, things like that. You need to put that at the top of your list. If you have an illness that you have to keep medicated, that needs to be your number one priority. Now, you can't necessarily just, buy stock up on insulin for the next 10 years of your life. But you need to be prepared at least for an issue with that.
Get ahead.
But there are a lot of other medications that a lot of people use, blood pressure medications and stuff like that you might want to have extra on hand.
Yeah. You can, usually you can talk to your doctor. Hey, is it possible we could do a 90-day supply instead of a 30-day supply? That kind of thing. Could we do my refill a month early? Maybe that means you have to pay a little out of pocket the first time to get like that one ahead or whatever. I don't know. But you need to think of how much of a priority it is for you and then start to, build ahead, that kind of stuff. So medication, being on top of that, be aware of your family members, what they need, how you're able to help them. These are good, basic, solid preps, right? Now, also with health, I would want to touch on having a decent first aid kit in your house. Having a decent first aid kit in your car is a nice option. And I got to say, you can find like a decent starter first aid kit that's decent for like 13, 14 bucks on Amazon. Right. But look through it. Like, don't just buy, first aid kit. Here's some piece of junk, or you see something at Sam's Club or whatever. And honestly, the one at Sam's Club, it wasn't bad, but there were a lot of things I kind of threw out and was like, all right, I'm going to upgrade this. Like having plastic tweezers, that's not helping anybody. You can say tweezers check, but you're not pulling out splinters. You're not pulling off ticks. You're not, doing anything that's really functional with it.
Right.
I understand that. But those are something you want to be aware of. What do you got?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of those things is a lot of those little first aid kits, they're like, they're like boo-boo fixers, they got Band-Aids and they got a little antiseptic, and you scrape your knee, you're gonna, you're not gonna get an infection. You'll be good. You can put a Band-Aid on it. Right. But when it comes to a higher level, you really want to think about stuff that you could have. Those butterfly stitches that just stick on, they're great. But it'd be even better if you know how to actually stitch up something,
Oh, practice stitches. So that's it. Like an EMT class, maybe they have like advanced medical training classes that are not like, I'm a paramedic, but maybe like a 1-day thing. Or I've been to some trauma classes that are pretty awesome that I was able to, step up my game a little bit. That's something you might consider. But also one of the things I do once I got a decent amount of medical training, I started carrying a trauma bag in my car. And so each of my vehicles has a trauma bag that's in there. And trauma bag, I'm talking about like the little IFAC size bags that you see the military guys carry. I'm not talking about a big bag. I'm not showing up like the paramedic with a big bag. I'm talking about some gauze, some quick clot, maybe a tourniquet, some sterile gloves, and a pair of scissors. Pretty much that's the, but again, I have 2 bags in my car. I have that bag where I'm actually dealing with trauma. And then I have a second bag where I'm dealing with, you got a cut. Oh, I need Neosporin. I need Band-Aids. They're actually in 2 totally different bags because one is like an emergency and the other is nice to have. And again, nice to have, but if I got an infection, that's bad, right? So having that little triple antibiotic or bacitracin or something in there, that, that's a win. So first aid.
Now, usually at your house, you should have your basic medications that you use. I can't tell you how many times I felt like a real dummy where, my seasonal allergies kick in and I go to my cabinet and realize I didn't have any from last year, or whatever, anything. I go in there and I only have Mickey Mouse Band-Aids and
But that was one of the things where kind of it won out being a prepper was one, I had toilet paper when things got hairy in
Uh-huh.
1920. We
Yeah.
can't talk about those times, but we block those times out of our history. But
Mhm.
when I needed toilet paper, oh, I got some. Don't worry about it. We're good. But also, like you said, allergy medicine. I take like Zyrtec or one of those, and we went to Sam's Club and all those places, and there was nothing on the shelf.
Mhm.
And I'm like, how? Why is, people are immediately, we can't get allergy medicine anymore,
Yeah.
but you couldn't for like a year. And I'm like, don't worry about it. Cause I was always buying, a couple of boxes ahead because I'm thinking, gee, the end of the world. I don't want to be dealing with itchy eyes and snot dripping out of my nose all day long. That's
Yeah.
not what I want. So, I cover me, right? What's important to me and what costs me almost nothing, right? So spending $13 twice when I went to Sam's Club, whatever. And to be honest, the more you stockpile and buy things, as long as you're keeping it safe, it's not going bad, it's not getting eaten by mice, you're getting ahead of inflation, right?
Mhm.
So I'm buying it at yesterday's prices, right? Now, I'm older. I'm obviously at a different place than when I was the young parent. And, having an extra $50 for food in the grocery store isn't necessarily an option when you're 25 and you got two kids
Right.
and you got right. I understand that. I'm not saying it's the same for everybody, but it was like, hey, at the end of the month, I have an extra $50. Why don't I buy a bunch of sausage that's frozen? There was a type of sausage that I like that's like $3.50 a packet at Walmart, and I bought like the box of 12 of them, and I put them in my big freezer or whatever, and I held on to them. Then it's funny because the next time I went back 12 later, it was like 4.75 or something for the same thing. And so I beat inflation on those, 12 items. Yeah, I saved $12. And that's not a
Mhm.
big deal, but it's that whole lifestyle of being
Right.
ahead of the game a little bit. It's not a bad way to be.
Yeah.
Um,
And a lot of people talk about inflation, and
yeah,
inflation is an issue. It's increased what 8% over the past 2 or 3 years.
yeah. I,
But
I think it's a little more than that, but that
yeah,
is what the official numbers seem to be around. Yeah.
right. But the difference between inflation is everything, right? But the cost of living has increased by 20%. That's your electric bill.
Easy.
That's your grocery stores. That's
The things that
the cost of living has gone up way more than 8%.
right. And that's the thing is you're like, oh, well, I can cut back on certain things, but you can't cut back on your electric bill. You can't cut back on,
Hmm.
on your
On your
groceries
groceries, right?
typically. I mean, obviously we do cut back, right? Maybe we have a meal or two without meat this week. Like,
Come on, get
you
out of
know,
here.
right? I don't know what kind of world we could live in. But I mean, obviously a lot of people have meals without meat, but I
Yeah,
don't know who those people would be. I mean, I'm gonna go get the squirrel in the backyard before we're having dinner without meat, right?
right.
He's not sitting there watching me drink my coffee unless we're gonna, do something about it.
Hmm. Yeah. No, my wife has been feeding the squirrels lately.
Mhm, mhm.
Crazy,
Fatten 'em up.
whatever. Fatten them up.
She's ready for dinner,
It
right?
started. We had 3 squirrels in our front yard that showed up every morning for peanuts. Now we're up to 12. Like, so all the whole damn neighborhood's coming over to our house every morning to get the peanuts. But
Right.
whatever. I mean, fat squirrels is I'm not really complaining, and it costs peanuts to feed them,
Literally.
literally. Right. That's a
Sorry, I had to
terrible
go
joke,
there.
but
Yeah, that was horrible. All right, last thing I wanted to touch on is it would be cool to think about like a prepper library. Now, obviously, any of these ideas that get you excited, we've done whole shows on them where we dig deep and you can kind of check it out. So we have an episode on the prepper library and all the books you might want to get. We have an episode on how to stock a first aid kit, how to plan out long-term food storage, right? How
mhm,
to build that up and how to store it, how to do it. We have episodes on all that stuff. You can go back through the library or search the videos on YouTube. We got them, right? We got you covered. But go through that. But the prepper library, at a minimum, think of something like a traditional Boy Scout handbook, right? That
Right.
has first aid. That has, all kinds of good advice and stuff that you can get in there. But obviously, there's a lot more advanced books on different things that you can get into that are really awesome. The Self-Sufficient Life is one of the ones that comes to mind, that I really liked. But, the SAS manual, if you wanted, something more advanced than a Boy Scout handbook that does cover foraging and outdoor stuff. But again, people think of prepping and I mean survival, it is more so true, but they think of outdoor, building a shelter outside, making a campfire, getting whatever. Now, I think the reason those two things get associated is those things are associated with somebody who's capable,
Hmm.
somebody who can solve problems and think on their feet and get things done. And that's really what you need to do is start developing skills where you can rely on yourself, where you're not dependent on other people, on things coming in, on the government. And the more you do that, the more that you're prepared and ready for anything that comes up. And that's really our goal and where you should be. So make sure you like and subscribe. Check out the podcast, Survival and Basic Badass Podcast. It's kind of everywhere. Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff. You have show ideas, questions, concerns, email us at preppingbadass@gmail.com. Otherwise, I would say stay safe and we will talk to you guys next week.